There are years in automotive history that feel bigger than a calendar. Years when the machines seem to carry the mood of an entire era. And 1969 was one of them. The cars still had chrome. They still had color. They still had long hoods, bold grills, dramatic rooflines, loud engines, and the confidence to look different from anything else on the road. A Dodge Charger looked like trouble standing still. A Camaro looked compact, sharp, and ready to fight. A Mustang Mach 1 looked like performance had gone mainstream. A Pontiac GTO Judge looked like rebellion had been painted directly onto the body. But the world around these machines was about to change. Emissions pressure, insurance costs, safety regulations, fuel concerns, changing buyers, changing laws, changing expectations. The freedom did not disappear in one day, but 1969 feels like the last great moment before the rules of the game began to tighten. Today on Timeless Treasures, we are looking at why 1969 was the last great year of automotive design freedom. Not because every car after it was bad, but because that year captured a rare peak of power, personality, proportion, and cultural confidence before the modern era began reshaping the automobile. The first machine that explains this feeling is the 1969 Dodge Charger. Few cars express late 60s confidence more clearly. The Charger was long, low, wide, and serious. It did not need exaggerated modern aggression because its proportions already carried threat. The hidden headlights, strong grille, and muscular rear haunches made it feel cinematic before cinema helped make it immortal. This was a production car with the presence of a movie character. The Charger mattered because it showed how much personality a mainstream American car could still carry. It was not designed to disappear into traffic. It was designed to occupy space, to be seen, to make the road feel like a stage. Modern muscle cars still borrow from this vocabulary because the language was so strong. But in 1969, it was not nostalgia. It was current. That is what makes the Charger important. It did not imitate an era. It was the era. Then there was the 1969 Chevrolet Camaro. If the Charger represented full-size muscle drama, the Camaro represented sharper pony car energy. Compact, aggressive, customizable, and visually direct, the 1969 Camaro had one of the cleanest and most memorable shapes in the entire pony car war. The grille, the wheel openings, the available stripes, and SS identities, everything worked together to make the car feel personal. That was one of the secrets of the late 1960s. Cars were not just sold as transportation, they were sold as identity. A Camaro buyer could choose performance, color, trim, wheels, engine, stripes, and attitude. The car became a statement about who you wanted to be. The 1969 Camaro still works today because its design is easy to understand. It is not confused. It is not overstyled. It has tension, but it also has balance. And that balance is why later Camaros kept returning emotionally to this period. The 1969 Camaro became a visual reference point because it captured the pony car formula at nearly full strength. Ford answered that same cultural hunger with the 1969 Mustang Mach 1. The Mustang had already changed American car culture earlier in the decade, but by 1969, it had grown more dramatic. The Mach 1 brought the fastback shape, hood scoop, stripes, and performance imagery into a package that felt both mainstream and theatrical. This was not a quiet car. It was designed to make performance visible. That matters because the late 1960s were not only about horsepower, they were about presentation. Automakers understood that people did not just want speed, they wanted the feeling of speed before the key even turned. The Mach 1 gave them that. It made a showroom car feel like something already connected to drag strips, night streets, and weekend pride. The design was bold, but still clean enough to feel disciplined. Modern Mustang design still depends heavily on the emotional memory of this period. The fastback roofline, the long hood, the muscular stance. All of it comes back because 1969 helped define what a Mustang was supposed to feel like. Not just a car, a promise. Then Pontiac pushed attitude almost to the edge of theater. The 1969 Pontiac GTO Judge. The Judge was not subtle, and it was not trying to be. Bright colors, decals, spoilers, hood details, Ram Air identity, and a name that sounded like a challenge. It represented the moment when muscle car culture became not only mechanical, but expressive. The GTO had already helped create the muscle car category earlier in the decade, but the Judge showed how far the attitude had evolved. By 1969, performance cars were no longer hiding behind formal restraint. They were loud, playful, rebellious, and proud of it. That kind of visual freedom is hard to imagine in the same way today. Modern performance cars can be faster and more capable, but the branding is often more controlled, more calculated, more global. The Judge came from a time when automakers were willing to be colorful, risky, and slightly ridiculous in the best possible way. It did not only sell performance, it sold personality at full volume. And that is one of the reasons 1969 still feels so alive. The cars were allowed to have character. The Chevrolet Corvette C3 showed another side of that freedom. The 1969 Corvette was not a muscle car in the same sense as a Charger or a GTO. It was America's sports car. And the C3 generation turned that identity into something dramatic, sculptural, and unmistakable. The long hood, the curving fenders, the tight cockpit, the chrome bumpers, the low body, the sense of motion even at rest, the C3 looked emotional in a way few production cars dare to look now. It was not designed by fear. It was designed by confidence. The Corvette mattered because it proved that American performance design was not only about straight-line power. It could also be visual theater. It could be shape, stance, proportion, reflection, and desire. Today, sports cars are shaped by aerodynamic efficiency, cooling needs, and global market expectations. Many are extraordinary machines. But the 1969 Corvette came from a moment when the form still felt freer, more sculptural, more willing to be dramatic for the sake of emotion. It was not the most practical answer. It was the memorable one. And memorable design is what survives. But design freedom in 1969 was not limited to muscle cars and sports cars. A 1969 Cadillac Eldorado or a Lincoln Continental Mark III carried a completely different kind of confidence. Long hoods, chrome grills. These cars were not trying to be youthful rebels. They were trying to express status. And they did it physically. The Eldorado, with its front-wheel drive layout and bold proportions, looked like luxury moving with unusual confidence. The Continental Mark III brought personal luxury into a sharper, more formal American shape. This is important because 1969 was not just a performance peak. It was a design language peak. Even luxury cars had strong identities. Modern luxury often tries to create presence through screens, lighting, and brand signatures. They looked like they belonged to a world that still believed a car could be a public statement. But that world was changing. The early 1970s brought new pressures that would reshape everything. Emissions regulations forced engineers to rethink engines. Insurance companies made high-powered performance cars more expensive to own. Fuel concerns began to grow, and by the oil crisis of the 1970s, the entire conversation around size, power, and consumption had shifted. Cleaner air mattered, safety mattered, but those solutions changed the look and feel of the automobile. Again, 1969 was not the literal last year of great design. Beautiful, important, and innovative cars came after it. But symbolically, 1969 feels like a final high point before the pressures became impossible to ignore. That is why the year matters. The Charger showed cinematic muscle presence. The Camaro showed pony car balance and attitude. The Mustang Mach 1 made performance imagery mainstream. The GTO Judge turned rebellion into a factory option. The Corvette C3 made American sports car design feel sculptural. The Eldorado and Continental Mark III proved that personal luxury still had physical authority. Together, they show an industry expressing itself with extraordinary confidence. And confidence is exactly what later decades often struggled to preserve. The rules changed, the world changed, the buyers changed, the roads changed. Cars became safer, cleaner, more efficient, more global, and eventually more digital. But something was lost along the way. A willingness to let a car have a face, a mood, and a personality that did not need to please everyone. That is what 1969 represents. Not perfection. The freedom to build a car that looked like trouble. The freedom to paint attitude on the body. The freedom to let a sports car look like sculpture. The freedom to let a machine tell the world exactly what it wanted to be. That is why 1969 still feels like a golden year. Because it captured the automobile just before the modern world began asking different questions. Less, how bold can it be? More, how safe, clean, efficient, insurable, and globally acceptable must it become? But they produced different machines. And in 1969, for one remarkable moment, the old question still had the louder voice. If 1969 still feels like a golden year to you, subscribe to Timeless Treasures and tell me which car from that year best captured the last great moment of design freedom.